Welcome. Today we're going to explore a really profound choice, one that quietly shapes our entire existence. It's the choice between living on autopilot and living with a sharp, awake intention. So let's get into what this really means for us.
This is really the heart of the matter, isn't it? And it's not so much about what you're doing, but how you're doing it. Think about it. Are you just being carried along by the currents of habit and what other people expect of you? Or are you consciously, deliberately designing your own path, your own responses, your own future?
To really get a handle on this distinction, we first need to look at a concept we call the Great Divide. You can think of it as this invisible line that separates two completely different ways of being in the world.
So on one side of this line, you have the comfort of autopilot. And look, it's easy, it's familiar, but it's often a state of just drifting. And then on the other side, you have the awake life. Now this path requires real intention, a deep commitment to our values. It's the difference between simple reactivity, just acting on impulse, and true responsibility.
This quote just nails the core tension that we all navigate. Every single day, in choices that are both huge and tiny, we feel this pull. Habit wants what's easy, right? What's safe, what takes the least amount of energy. But intention demands the sometimes difficult work of finding clarity before we act.
So, let's break down these two opposing forces a little more. Because understanding what's truly motivating our choices, that's the very first step toward developing what we call internal authority. And that just means the ability to act from a place of clear personal values instead of from outside pressure.
Now, what's so interesting about this little matrix is how it kind of maps our inner landscape. Over on the left, we've got habitual functioning. This is basically our default setting, and it's often driven by this unconscious need for comfort and for the approval of others. It's a self-preservation mode. But then on the right, you have intentional functioning, and this is a whole different ballgame. It's all about seeking clarity and honoring what is true for us, even when it's uncomfortable. This is a mode of revelation, not preservation.
And right here is the crucial point. Choosing to honor your truth is probably going to create some friction. You're going to feel it. But that discomfort, it is not a sign that you're doing something wrong. Actually, it's the opposite. It is the necessary, vital signal that you are growing, that you're moving into greater alignment with yourself.
All right, so how do we actively live this awake life? It's not a passive thing. It requires us to deliberately interrupt that habit loop we all fall into. So here are 4 cognitive actions that really form the foundation for living with intention and presence. First, we plan. This means we strategically prepare to line up our next actions with our deepest values. Second, we foresee. We actually pause to consider the long-term ripple effects of our choices, not just the immediate payoff. Third, we imagine. We open ourselves up to new possibilities that go way beyond our old repetitive behaviors. And finally, we decide. With full awareness, making each choice an act of internal authority, like a quiet declaration of our own sovereignty.
Okay, so let's talk about the outcomes of these choices and see how this all builds, because it turns out that not all success is created equal. The source of our achievements actually determines whether they're ultimately going to drain us or sustain us.
I think many of us have felt this before. It's what we call draining success. You check all the boxes, you achieve the goals that society says you should, but inside you just feel hollowed out. And that's because it was all built on reacting to what others wanted, not what was actually true for you. It's a pretty hollow victory. The alternative, then, is nourishing success. And this kind of achievement feels completely different. It actually energizes you, it sustains you, precisely because it's an authentic reflection of your internal values and the conscious, awake choices you made to get there. So what makes it different? Well, nourishing success gives you lasting vitality, not just a temporary high. It creates this powerful sense of integrity because your actions are actually matching your beliefs. And maybe most importantly, it comes from being the sovereign author of your choices, not just reacting to your environment. That's what we mean by proactive sovereignty. So how do we get there? How do we consistently bridge that great divide and start to cultivate a life of nourishing success? Well, it really comes down to committing to a few foundational principles for what we call upright living, a life lived in true alignment with our deepest values.
The first principle is really a constant practice. Before you act on an impulse, especially one that feels really easy or automatic, just ask yourself, am I moving toward what's comfortable or am I moving toward what's true? Choosing clarity is always the foundational step.
Second, we have to commit to honoring the truth.
And this is right at the heart of what we call presence-driven leadership, leading ourselves and others from a place of real authenticity and integrity. It means we have to value our internal alignment more than we value temporary external approval. And yeah, that takes courage, but it is absolutely essential for building real internal authority.
And finally, our third principle, making sure our ambitions and goals are genuine expressions of our core values. You see, when we act from alignment, the success that follows will be the kind that truly nourishes us and sustains us for the long haul.
You know, when we truly commit to these principles, the shift is just profound. We move from being a product of our circumstances to becoming a conscious, intentional force in our own lives. We start to shape our reality from a place of deep clarity and presence.
Now, to make all this real for you, here's a practical application. Take a moment and just reflect on this question. Where in my life am I currently choosing comfort over clarity? And for a little micro practice, try this. Just once this week, before making one small decision, pause and ask yourself, is this choice an expression of alignment, or is it just a reaction? That simple pause, that's where the architect of an awake life begins their work. It's in that quiet moment of choice that you reclaim your power,